Hello and welcome to Star Trek Rewind, your weekly visit to the future and the past. I am your host, or at least one of them, Pyrosaniac, and with me today are...
Captain Fruit. And the other guy who's not talking. Hello!
Hello!
And Ninja Nerd.
He's there. He's
You're
alive.
not hearing me? Oh,
We didn't hear
okay.
you the first time if you
Cool.
said things. Sorry.
Oh well. I just introduced myself. I'm pretty sure that the audience gets the idea.
4 episodes in, I'd hope so.
Okay, perfect. And today we're talking about...
Unless of course they haven't listened to any of the previous episodes.
Watch them, and then watch this one. Anyway, today we're talking about Episode 5, Season 1, Where No One Has Gone Before. Notable for its similar title to the one in the original series, called Where No Man Has Gone Before.
It's also a line in the opening sequence.
They're really getting... In case you haven't ever seen Star Trek
Yes.
before.
Well, in the original one it was Where No Man, just like the episode title. But in Next Generation they changed it to be more
Oh.
racial and sexually diverse, appreciative, I'm not sure what the word is.
Not neutral.
Well, if you think about it, there's like it's not just men now. There's also Klingons. There's Romulans. There's like all kinds of people on the ship now. Well, not Romulans,
A
but
Klingon who's brought up on Earth, a half Betazoid, whole bunch of humans, an android made by humans. They're
Vulcans.
not as a main cast member.
No, that is true. In Voyager, there's 7 of 9, and she's a Borg, but
Yes.
she's not a human.
She was a human.
Oh, dang! I forgot about that. I haven't seen a lot of Voyager. My apologies. I've only
Well, they've
seen
got Tuvok, who's not a Vulcan.
A Vulcan.
Yeah, not a human
he
at all.
isn't?
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. Is he like one of the first completely non-human characters?
as a
in
main
Star Trek?
character, possibly because Spock was a half human.
Although he's not
Yeah.
quite as emotionless as Vulcans because of some strange stuff that happened when he was growing up. So he does have more human-like qualities than most Vulcans. But probably
Okay.
also Neelix and Kes are notable for being entirely non-human.
Yes.
Well, actually, no, I'm not sure having a conversation. Data is obviously completely non-human.
But
just
he
looks like a
was
human.
created by humans and raised surrounded by humans.
But he is still not a human. Which I guess the same argument can be
Right.
made for Worf, though. But
Anyway.
whatever. They've been on this tangent for a very long time.
Yes, anyway, this is the one which, if you haven't watched it before watching this video, go watch it. But this is the one where they have the Traveller and snooty little Starfleet engineer come in and promise to upgrade the Enterprise's warp drive, and they get barreled off hundreds of millions of light years away.
To some crazy looking...
As you might expect.
Nebula thing? I don't know what the hell it was.
Well, the first time they travelled 2.7 million kilometres to what they call the M33 galaxy, which is actually a real place. It's called M33, or Messier number 33, also known as NGC 598, or the Triangulum galaxy.
They should have gone to Centaurus. It would have been a lot cooler.
Probably, yes. The Triangulum exists with the Milky Way and Andromeda, and 44-ish other galaxies in the local group, and the Triangulum is the third largest, just after us and, of course, Andromeda.
Which is much, much
Yes,
bigger than
and
us.
is on a collision course with us.
I think we'll know who wins.
Yay.
No.
Oh, you don't exactly win.
So, sorry, just last thing I'll say on this tangent, right? When two massive galaxies on the size of the Milky Way and Andromeda, quote unquote, crash into each other, it is incredibly unlikely, even though they each contain hundreds of billions of stars and Andromeda contains about 1 trillion, it is extremely, extremely unlikely that any two stars will collide.
there was actually a video. It wasn't actually a video. There was a web page that I saw that had a very, very large scale model of just our solar system, and the scale was if the moon was 1 pixel. And basically, you scroll through all of our solar system from the sun to Pluto, and yes, Pluto counts. And at the scale of the moon is 1 pixel, and it is incomprehensible how much dark space there is between these tiny little blips of planets.
And even when you get to Pluto, you're a fraction of a percent of the way to the edge of the solar system.
Exactly, it's mind-boggling. People can't...
And to think of how many different solar systems are in each galaxy, the possibility of 2 stars colliding is basically nothing.
I find it fascinating how there's just this huge region of our universe that's so mind-bogglingly huge that people just call it space. Because it's just space. There's nothing there. Well, except for some dust. And the occasional planet. Star.
Talking about...
My apologies.
Stop interrupting. Funny. Anyway, speaking about the size of the universe, when they jump again, they go a long way. They go 1 billion light years away from the Milky Way to what data concludes is the edge of the known universe.
Or as farther than any man has gone before. Or where none have gone before is precisely what he says.
And yeah, the thing is, and I don't really want to nitpick Data's physics here, but you've gone 1 billion light years away and you're calling it the edge of the known universe, whereas the observable universe, which is all of the universe in which light has had the time to reach Earth from, is approximately 93 billion light years across.
Yeah. So, well, maybe it is possible, right? It might be possible that if you're saying the known universe as just ranging from Earth, they could have just been on, like, I guess. Well, no, they would have had to already have been several galaxies over. Never mind. I was going to say that they might just be like on the edge already, and then they just jumped the last billion. But if that were the case, they'd already have to be in another galaxy to start off with. That would be way farther away than Messier 33.
If I recall correctly, now it has been quite a few years since I saw this episode of the original Star Trek, but I think it's in the second pilot to the first one where James D. Kirk comes in. They try to go past the edge of our galaxy and find it's actually impossible to do so because of some sort of field. I may be remembering that incorrectly, but as far as I'm able to remember, no one can actually go outside of our galaxy.
Is it like some sort of field that connects all living things?
No, not quite like that.
I can tell that he's just staring at us angrily right now. Just glaring.
No, I don't blame you because
do you not get it?
I'm.
Okay, good.
This is a very vague memory. Well, not a vague memory, an old memory, because I saw the original Star Trek quite a few years ago. Actually, I think I watched it was like 8 or something, so I don't remember a whole lot of it.
And anyway, we're 10 minutes in. We probably should get to actually... Yeah.
What actually
so
happens.
Looking at our regular schedule of things to talk about, the first one is trivia. So we've talked about quite a bit of trivia before. Anything else you want to mention?
The guy's name was Argyle and he didn't wear sweater.
Interesting fact. Wesley Crusher is an annoying prick in this episode.
Oh!
You don't say.
This episode is notable for having within it one of the only characters more annoying than Wesley Crusher.
What, the engineer?
Kaczynski.
What's his name? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe the point of including him was to make Wesley seem less annoying.
That's actually a good point.
We really don't have a lot of tolerance for Will Wheaton on this show, do we?
Yeah. Well, it's not Will Wheaton, it's just the character in general. I just don't really like him.
Just the question. I guess it's not his fault. He's a good actor for playing the character, but the writing for him is just abysmal.
I mean, I guess it was supposed to bring in and encourage the younger audience to watch.
Younger audience.
If they weren't sold on the premise of the show already, adding what's a male version of a Mary Sue?
It's called I forget.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not
Something
quite
Sam.
applicable, but you get the idea. Some overpowered character who has absolutely no rights to be
as significant as he is, and then it always just feels like he's shoehorned into the story.
Interesting fact, the term Mary Sue actually comes from a piece of the original Star Trek fan fiction.
I did know that, actually.
Seriously?
Yeah. Someone brought in who's a better scientist than Spock, a better engineer than Scotty, a better captain of the ship than Kirk. And she's really annoying, but everyone seems to love her, and she's obviously an author insert.
Oh, I remember, the variation is called a Marty stew for males.
Ah. Perfect.
Like Marty McFly and Stewart, I guess. Although Marty McFly is far from perfect.
Yeah, well, that's what's interesting about him, unlike Wesley.
Yeah, the whole scene with the hallucinations appearing was pretty weird as well.
Oh, definitely. Oh!
Yeah. Although there have been weirder episodes, like the one where Riker isn't sure whether he's dreaming or not. That was pretty weird.
Yeah.
Or, the one where Picard lives the rest of his life on some planet that was actually part of a probe. That was really weird.
Hey,
that was also pretty weird.
We'll get to that when we get to that. Okay? Stop ruining one of the best episodes of the entire show.
Well, my apologies. The Inner Light is
okay.
a really good episode, though.
We'll talk about... Stop talking. Okay, second.
No, wait. I have something I should say about the hallucinations. Did anyone else find Worf's pet adorable?
What, the wild boar?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a boar. It's like a weird alien. Not really that alien boar. It's pretty adorable. I wanted to cuddle it. And like a unicorn horn. Targ, that was the name of it.
What, his pet Targ?
Yeah.
It looks exactly like a dire boar from
That's
Dungeons and
because-
Dragons.
I'm pretty sure it is a boar.
Exactly.
They actually brought an actual boar on set.
No, but it even has the weird bony spines on its back and everything. It looks exactly like it.
So which do you think was based off the other then?
In Dungeons and Dragons, there are versions of monsters called, not monsters, just creatures called Dyers, which are kind of like bigger, more, I guess, bestial versions of them.
Scary versions of things.
Although there was actually some real dire animals, like dire wolves, for example, actually existed. But they're mostly just larger versions of wolves, although they died out quite a while ago. Anyways, back to reality.
Yeah, next on the list is metaphors/themes. So what metaphors or themes do you think were present in this episode?
Well, that's the ever-constant theme of young boy trumps the fully trained Starfleet officers while he's in high school.
Right. There's also the theme of the old, I think it was Arthur C. Clarke quote, that any sufficiently advanced technology can appear like magic.
Oh yeah, that one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that one. It's like showing a rocket ship to a caveman.
Yeah,
the thing.
or the traveller phasing in and out of existence whilst thinking about warp fields.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
This episode is just built on such a ridiculous premise. It's very hard to take it seriously.
But I think that's the whole point.
Is it, though?
I
mean, you could just... Like, if you say that the premise is nonsensical and that's the point of it, it doesn't really justify it.
And then at the end, Wesley gets compared to Mozart instead. just, instead of being able to manipulate music, he can manipulate time, space, and thought, which are apparently all the same thing. Which,
for some reason,
the Traveller says to Wesley to keep it secret because the world isn't ready for ideas like that yet.
Obviously, because if you need to entrust a world-changing secret, the best person to do it with is a teenager. Also,
I think it's strange that they're comparing the society of the Federation, which is obviously a utopian, enlightened society, calling it closed-minded and not ready to accept information feels a little bit strange.
Exactly how open-minded do they want them to be?
Well, if you think about it, they're not exactly 100% open-minded, because there still is some racial segregation going on, especially with Data, as is evident in later episodes. Like, he doesn't really have full rights for a long time.
But that isn't really, like, you know, the system as a whole, though. That's just individual jerks.
I have to agree there.
Is a community...
Like, you know, who are mostly engineers that just see him as a piece of equipment.
Is a community not created from its members? Is it not...
True, but...
Yeah, but they make up the vast minority.
But one individual, because it was never stated that... I mean, throughout the entire course of the show's run, there are perhaps 2 characters who treat Data like a machine, disrespect him rights, right? There's the one who wants to dissect him, and then that time versus the Romulans when they're setting up a net and Data's been given command of a ship and his first officer doesn't want to follow his orders because he's not comfortable taking orders from an android.
Wasn't there an episode where you had to go to Starfleet Higher Command about something, and there was some issue with him being an android?
Oh yeah, I remember that. There was they wanted to like deny him rights to something because he was an android, and then it was about him being property of the Federation. That was it.
That was the first one I was talking about, because remember there was that guy who wanted to dissect Data?
Oh, that's right. Now I remember. Yeah, okay.
What, and produce more androids. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Federation ordered him to submit to that, and then Data resigned, and they said he couldn't resign because he was property of Starfleet. And that's really where it all came to a head, but...
Really, you'd think that they could probably, like, analyze Data without needing to take him apart. Like, that they'd have the technology to just kind of scan him and figure out his contents.
Then we wouldn't get a brilliant episode like that one.
I guess. Anyway, let's talk about this episode, not other episodes.
Yeah, okay, next on the list is characters. So we've obviously already talked about Wesley, and we've talked about Kaczynski. Any other characters?
Well, I think the Traveller is obviously the primary figure of this episode, of which the entire plot revolves around.
So what's his significance then, do you think? What's he a metaphor for? Or what does he add other than being...
The Arthur C. Clarke quote, yeah.
A quote-unquote mystic.
Yes. This is extremely obvious, but he could be sort of metaphorical for things are not always as they seem. And that we shouldn't take...
I guess. How at first he's just the assistant, and then it turns out that he's like this super powerful being.
Some things are beyond comprehension.
Precisely, how we shouldn't just take reality for granted, and that we should really start to think about the bigger picture. I don't know. I'm kind of grasping for things here. This episode was a little bit confusing, just because it was kind of crazy.
I think they go more into the Traveller later on, though.
Yeah, he comes in 2 more episodes. So we'll get to them when we get to them, I suppose. But...
yeah. It seems like every single time we do one of these, we always inevitably end up going on massive tangents onto other episodes that vaguely relate to this one.
Well, that's the great thing about Star Trek.
It's all
Sounds
interconnected.
brilliant.
That's why we love it so much. And also because it's awesome.
Yeah. That's also a factor.
And a lot of this episode feels like it's set up just to introduce the Traveller, which is amazing that they'd spend so much time on it, because he only appears twice more in the entire series, but...
Well, maybe they thought of him as being like, that he'd play a bigger part, that he'd be kind of like another Q in a way. He'd be, this sort of entity that shows up randomly.
Perhaps, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe they want to give Q a kind of a counterpart, a yin to his yang, if you will, because he's a bit more, I don't know, not as outspoken and brash. He's very calm and considerate. He's very selfless too. Like, he's willing to possibly sacrifice himself for the safety of the Enterprise to get back.
Just to be clear, you're talking about the Traveller and not Q.
I am indeed talking about the Traveller, whereas Q, on the other hand...
I was like, those things don't describe Q at all.
Q, on the other hand, is... Oh boy, what are some good adjectives to describe him? Selfish.
Well,
inconsiderate.
I'd like to point out for a second that this episode is the joint third highest rated episode of Star Trek Season 1 TNG on IMDb.
What were the other well-rated episodes in this series?
The ones that tied with it are Season 1, Episode 11, The Big Goodbye, Episode 14, 11001001.
Oh, that's a good one.
Slightly higher than it is Datalore, and the highest is Conspiracy.
I think Data's Day is still my favorite, though.
That's not the first season, though.
Data's Day is amazing. This is just for the first season, yeah.
But that's the first season. Yeah, Datalore is a very good episode in the first season, though. Once again, yin yang. There's a lot of this yin yang going on in Star Trek now that I think about it.
Wow. I'm not going to say what they are because that would ruin it, but the top 2 rated episodes, or the top 3 rated episodes of Star Trek TNG on IMDb are my 3 favourite episodes.
Well, it's almost like like you have good taste or something.
I have a very good guess of what they are, but I'm not going to say them.
Cool. Right, well, next. Continuity.
We touched quite a bit on continuity already, haven't
Alright.
we?
Yeah, really the only plot lines that get picked up again after this one are Wesley's and the Travellers.
Yes.
And Wesley's is basically just, Wesley is a genius for some reason.
All hail Wesley!
Oh yeah, the whole untapped potential thing.
And then the whole...
Does it kind of remind you of Gohan, except a lot less epic? Ninja Nerd.
Yeah. Yeah, kind
it comes
I
up.
guess. Well, in the same way that that he got hyped a lot and then didn't really deliver.
Well, I thought Mystic Gohan delivered. Anyways, that was just a very slight tangent. Back to Star Trek.
Yeah, next, technology. We've talked about this quite a bit already. They obviously, probably the most important piece of technology for this episode is how they go really, really, really fast.
Oh, it's a logarithmic. Is it a logarithmic scale, or is it something a little bit higher than that? I can't remember.
I know in Voyager the warp scale goes up in a way such that warp 1 is the speed of light and warp 10 is infinite velocity, but I'm not sure. They changed the warp scale several times over the Star Trek seasons, so I've got no idea what it is in TNG.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
Well, you can't really have a scale where that goes from 1 to infinity and have each increment be like have 1 to infinity, but then put that between 1 and 10, and then have each point be like a regular number.
No, it doesn't go up linearly,
or even exponentially.
of course. But think about time dilation as you approach the speed of light, right?
Well, I mean, I guess in theory you could have I guess actually you could do it exponentially and just have an asymptote at 10. That makes sense.
Essentially how it works. So Voyager has a standard cruising velocity of something like 9.97, which is very fast.
Seriously? Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah, it is insane.
If that's very close to infinity, I'm actually surprised they didn't go further than the other half of the galaxy.
Why didn't it take them so long to get back anyway, if they could go that fast?
Well, that's still, when you're talking about the length of the galaxy, that's still a long, long way. Because, think about it, 9.99 is probably 10 or 20 times faster than 9.97. And as it approaches...
Well, I mean,
Sorry.
But if the Traveler has, any sort of altruistic nature at all, couldn't he have just, given them a hand, just teleported them straight back with his magic warp powers?
He could have, and there are plenty of times in which Q, or a wormhole, or
Deus
the
Ex
Caretaker,
Machina,
or the other being like the Caretaker, could have very easily brought Voyager back, but every single time they end up choosing not to because they have a higher moral imperative. Anyway, why are we talking about Voyager?
I'm not sure.
Because I can't. That's my fault. Sorry. As I looked on Memory Alpha, and apparently the warp is equal to. Oh no, it doesn't actually explicitly state what it is, but it did not exceed warp 9.99999999996. Because it'd be confirmed in Threshold, where Tom Paris becomes the first human to travel at warp 10.
Let's just pretend that episode never happened and get back to the one we're talking about, shall we? No, actually, I'm going to talk about this second.
Alright, what's next on the agenda, then?
I am prepared to say that the episode Threshold is the worst episode of Star Trek in any season ever.
Seriously?
And yes, that does include Season 2, Episode 22 of TNG, Shades of Grey.
And Code of Honor.
And, worse than Code of Honor, the amount of dreadful science that gets thrown out in that one. Actually, no, Code of Honor's racist, so that might actually push it down lower, but... Anyhow.
Bad science or racism, which one is worse?
You do not understand how majorly they screwed up the science.
I need to look into this
They've
more.
just been feeding people a misconceived idea of how evolution works for decades now. And it's that episode's fault, because they've got people saying, look, here's a show about science, and it explains it this way, and that's why evolution's bad. But it acts as if evolution is trying to work towards some sort of end goal, or some predetermined form that humanity is evolving towards.
And then the end result is conversations with Bill Nye explaining simple scientific concepts to people who don't understand it.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that the one where the guy turns into that weird red blob glowy thing?
No, it turns into a sort of slug-like lizard thing.
Oh, this is Voyager.
Yeah, Voyager. Okay, he contracts a disease that causes him to hyper-evolve, which makes zero sense whatsoever. And ends up rapidly evolving into, firstly, some humanoid thing that is utterly impractical and nothing would ever evolve into for any reason.
I think that I've actually seen that episode, and I haven't seen very much of Voyager, but that one I've seen.
And then it turns out evolution is a communicatable disease, which gets spread to Janeway, and they end up escaping to some sort of swamp planet. And then they have offspring, which they leave behind, because leaving the final evolved form of humanity on some isolated planet in the middle of nowhere obviously doesn't break the Prime Directive. And then they de-evolve them back into human. I mean, the process of devolution makes a certain degree of sense, because there's genetic material that still exists that hasn't been used for thousands of years. It's still knocking around back there. But you can't spontaneously evolve into what humanity is going to look like in 10 million years.
Okay, maybe I just have a horrible understanding of it, but that might make some sense if you replace the word evolution with mutation. And you dropped everything about that being humanity's like final state. That might make some degree of sense, except for reversing it somehow, which wouldn't really work.
And let's not go on to the other part of the episodes, which is that this hyper-evolution is somehow caused by going at warp 10, right?
What?
But
why? That doesn't make
which makes no sense. And then it's shown to be, communicable so other people can catch the disease. Which makes serious. Are there parasites living at warp 10 or something? And then they have the capacity to go at warp 10, to go at infinite velocity, right? Go anywhere in the universe in an instant. And they don't do any more research into it and keep themselves stranded half the other side of the galaxy in the Delta Quadrant, even though they've clearly shown that the effects caused by this process are completely reversible.
Why?
I've got no answers to the questions.
Alright, well now. Thanks for that.
Yeah, so general thoughts on this episode.
General thoughts?
I think they were trying to give some sort of philosophical idea
insight
towards the audience. Yeah, insight, that's what I'm looking for. But I don't think they quite achieved that. I think the episode had some...
Yeah, it kind of seems forced.
Lacking subtleties? I don't know, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. It's kind of... Just like how I'm speaking right now, there's kind of just grabbing ideas out of nowhere.
It's like they were trying to sound deep, but weren't actually saying anything significant. So space, time, and thought are all the same. Like, that isn't really all that good of an insight.
Yeah, what does that even mean?
It's clearly not the worst episode.
No.
But it's a long shot from the best one.
Yeah. And, honestly, we might be a little bit tinged by the quality of episodes leading up to this. But...
Yeah. So, does anyone have anything else to say, or can we get down to the useless scoreboard system?
It's not useless.
Well, it's arbitrary.
Yeah. And before we give this thing a score, we've implemented a new rule where each of us, once per season, are allowed to modify any of the scores we come up with in any way we want. If we think a score is somehow too high or too low, we each have the power to change one episode per season.
And you can guarantee that it'll either be to the highest or lowest score. And we also probably won't be using it in this episode.
Okay. Criteria 1, political themes.
Political themes. They didn't really touch on any political themes in this at all.
There's the Arthur C. Clarke thing, which isn't quite political, but I'd be prepared to give this thing a 2.
Well, I don't know, maybe we forgot to mention there was a little bit of insight into, give me a second, I need to remember her name. Why is it that I can never remember Denise Crosby's name, but now I can't remember her character's name?
Natasha Yar.
Natasha Yar. What is wrong with my memory? Every single episode, I'm trying to say Natasha Yar's actor. I can only say Natasha Yar's actor. Now I'm trying to say Denise Crosby, or I'm trying to say Natasha Yar. I can only say Denise Crosby. Like, I didn't even know what's going on. Anyways,
well,
there was a little bit of insight into her backstory.
Yeah, I guess. Although they'd already kind of ham-fisted that into the earlier episode where everyone got drunk.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
But the
second... Oh, sorry.
That isn't really any sort of political theme.
So, second criteria, acting.
Acting? What do you guys think?
I think that Riker did a very good job. Well, not Riker, I guess William Frakes did a very good job of
not caring about Wesley.
Strict to Wesley.
Yeah, I like that part a lot.
I thought that Kaczynski, the actor,
Kaczynski's acting was amazing. That was good. Well, not
amazingly
amazing, but
well.
definitely very good.
Well, somehow managed to come off as genuinely annoying and prattly, which is about all that could be asked. So I'd score this episode quite high just on his efforts.
Yeah. Alright, so want to give it a 7?
7?
Right?
Yeah,
Sounds good.
7 on account of him being a prick.
Yep.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Category 3, Technobabble. 10. This
10.
has got to be a 10.
God, there's
So
this
much
episode was
random
littered
technobabble.
with technobabble.
Okay. 4, Plot.
Plot. Well, I mean,
3?
they went to another
Maybe
galaxy
4,
and then
actually.
the edge of the known universe. And
Which is only about 1 billion light years away,
Yeah.
apparently.
supposedly. And
How do you even locate your position 1 billion light years away? Imagine the power of the computer system and sensors required to determine an accurate fix on location.
How do they determine their location anyway? Like, what do they use?
I think
what
they use triangulation,
means
but
do
I'm
they
not sure.
use?
I think
But
they
triangulating
just said,
with what?
Well, I think what they do is they take, you know how you can
use the word sensors.
You know how you can look
So
at
they just
stars?
said sensors show that we're...
I don't want to start speaking because I know if I do, you're going to start speaking at the exact same time.
No, I'm just saying, in the episode, I'm pretty sure they just use the word sensors. Sensors say we're 1 billion light years
Alright,
away, etc.
So we already
My theory
had
for how they determine, how they determine locations is how when you look at stars with a spectrometer, you can determine their makeup. I think they have some sort of sensor that looks at stars to determine their makeup and then figures out what star that is, and they use triangulation to determine their location. That's my best guess.
True, but think about this. The Milky Way is about 100,000 light years in diameter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they have a lot of time.
We're talking about something that is...
Or, wait a minute.
That is 1 billion light years away. So you'd need some sort of really super intense phenomena. I mean, we only pick up the messages from pulsars that are in our own Milky Way galaxy and quasars. So how incredibly powerful something would need to be in order for it to be recognizable at, 10,000 times further away than our galaxy is across.
I was just referring to in general, not just in this one instance.
Oh, right.
It is, but I mean, in this one instance, it is possible that they just looked out into space and saw a star they didn't recognize, and many stars they didn't recognize, and then realized that they must be on like the edge of what they've seen. Otherwise, they'd know what these stars are.
How to know they just weren't on the other side of our galaxy?
Plus, it's also possible that they just used dead reckoning, so
Yes.
the computer knew how fast they were going and for how long, and used that to work out its position.
Despite the fact that it involves the combination of space, time, and thought.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the computer deals with that.
Yeah.
How do you account for thought interfering with your starship's movement? Anyway.
Well,
All
it's
right.
something that we're not ready for yet, apparently.
Yep.
So, plot.
Plot. What do you guys think?
4.
4.
3.
I say 4.
3.
4.
4? Alright then. 4.
4. Alright.
I'll give it to you. And awesomeness.
Awesomeness?
I think that Wesley Crusher takes away from the awesomeness a lot.
2.
Do you?
1.
Not a 1, it was a bit higher than a 1.
Let's say 2 because the Traveler shows up, and he's a rare sight.
Okay. Perfect.
The effects for the other galaxy was pretty cool, though, I thought.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, so look that up on our complex system. That's a 25 out of 50. Or Ambassador
50%.
class. Ambassador class.
Ambassador class.
Ambassador class.
Cool. What's the highest we've gotten
What
so
known
far?
starship's in an ambassador class?
I think perhaps one that I'll check.
Let's see, you can type into memory alpha faster. Oh, jeez. I apparently botched spelling ambassador.
Enterprise C.
Oh, okay.
The one that got destroyed in yesterday's Enterprise that resulted in Natasha Yar getting sent back in time.
Yeah. Alright, cool.
Which...
Well then.
Oh yeah, that was the one where she came back for an episode.
Is that it for this episode then?
I don't know.
I believe so.
To say.
Yeah.
I've got nothing.
Cool. See ya.
Yes, thanks guys for watching. See you all next time.
Wow, that was a long episode. Yeah, 41 minutes. Very nice. Alright, thanks guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week.